Hello, my name is Diego Pellecchia. I am Associate Professor at Kyoto Sangyo University. In this video, I would like to briefly introduce the chapter titled Reception, which I co-edited with Professor横山太郎of Rikkyo University. In my section, I will discuss the reception of Nō from the Meiji period to the Second World War, followed by Professor Yokoyama's introduction of developments from the post-war period to the present day. In the reception chapter, we decided to organize the material chronologically to clearly show how Nō was received abroad and how it influenced other forms of performing arts. Approaching Nō and Kyōgen beyond the framework of their traditional contexts has been a central perspective of this companion since its conception. Today, Nō and Kyōgen plays and performance methods are taught not only in Japanese studies, but also in theater departments around the world. Scholars of diverse national and disciplinary backgrounds have produced high-quality research on Nōgaku and often include it in their teaching. In fact, this volume of the companion also contains a chapter titled The History of Nōgaku Studies by non-Japanese scholars. This growing international engagement demonstrates that Nō serves both as a rich gateway to understanding Japanese culture and as an art form that transcends its original cultural environment, being embraced and reimagined in new creative contexts. The chapter opens with the first encounters between Nō, Kyōgen, and foreign visitors to Japan in the late 19th century, divided into three groups. The first, diplomats, includes members of foreign legations who attended Nō as official entertainment. Their published reports often reflected Orientalist biases and judged Nō by Western realist standards. Yet some noticed parallels with ancient Greek tragedy, comparing Nō masks and chorus to classical drama, while others wrongly thought that Nō was an art reserved for the samurai and for the elite. The reception of Nō advanced when foreign scholars fluent in Japanese began translating it into European languages. The French priest Noël highlighted that, unlike Greek tragedy, Nō values the poetic beauty of its chants over plot development. Basil Hall Chamberlain, who taught at the University of Tokyo, admired the literary quality of Nō texts, but dismissed its dances as tedious to Western audiences. Similarly, critic Osman Edwards praised Nō's melancholic atmosphere, yet labeled it as stagnant theater, expecting to be replaced by modern Western drama. Earlier studies of Nō focused mainly on its texts, neglecting performance. However, the British scientist Marie Carmichael Stopes took a different approach, examining Nō not only as plays, but also as masks, costumes, and stage design in her book Plays of Old Japan, The Nō, which she co-authored with Sakurai Joji. This was the first comprehensive study of its kind. Her work anticipated modern scholarship and challenged the notion of Nō as an elite art, showing that its devoted supporters often came from ordinary backgrounds. Knowledge of Nō spread abroad not only through visitors to Japan, but also through material culture. During the Japonism boom of the late 19th century, Nō masks, costumes, and illustrated books were exported widely. As Nō actors lost samurai patronage in the Meiji era, many sold these treasures to collectors in Europe and North America. In France, art journals and dealers helped popularize Nō and Kyōgen artifacts. Though often misunderstood, Nō masks in particular captivated Western artists and became a major source of creative inspiration. The reception of Nō in the West entered a new phase with the art historian Ernest Fenollosa. He studied Nō under Umewaka Minoru and produced the first systematic English records and translations, though these were not without inaccuracies. After his death, His wife Mary, together with literates Ezra Pound and William Butler Yeats, organized and published his notes. Fenollosa saw Nō as a living art that could revitalize Western theater and believed that it must be learned directly from the actors. The British scholar Arthur Whalley later advanced the field with his accurate, philologically rigorous translations and his pioneering introduction of Zeami's treatises to the West. Western modernist theater practitioners, seeking alternatives to 19th century naturalism, looked to Nō as a model for a new theatrical aesthetic and spirit. Figures such as William Butler Yeats, Ezra Pound, Edward Gordon Craig, Bertolt Brecht, Jacques Copeau, Paul Claudel drew inspiration from its structure, staging, and training methods, shaping the course of modern theater. Ezra Pound completed and published Ernest Fenollosa's unfinished Nō translations in 1916. Despite their inaccuracies, they profoundly influenced Western literary circles and expanded Pound's creative vision. Disenchanted with commercial theater, Yeats found in Nō a model for symbolic, anti-naturalistic drama. His plays for dancers, especially a play called At the Hawkswell, combined masks, stylized movement, and poetic language. The Japanese dancer Ito Michio, known in the West as Michio Ito, performed in this work in Europe, later inspiring its adaptation as a Shinsaku no in Japan, an early example of intercultural exchange. Edward Gordon Craig admired Nō's ritual atmosphere, symbolism, and discipline. In the masked Nō actor, he envisioned his ideal performer, the Übermarionette, transcending individual ego. Through his journal, The Mask, he introduced Nō to a generation of modernist artists. Among the modernists most deeply influenced by Nō were Jacques Copeau, Bertolt Brecht, and Paul Claudel, engaging with it in distinct but significant ways. Paul Claudel, poet and playwright, created works shaped by Nō theater that were later staged in Japan in the form of Nō. Jacques Copeau viewed theater as a way of life. At his Paris school, he trained actors in disciplined economical movement and mask work that avoided reliance on facial expression. In the early 1920s, his troupe studied Nō translations and even rehearsed a Nō play called Kantan, leaving a lasting impact despite not performing it. Copeau's legacy led to the French corporeal mime tradition, later advanced by Etienne Decroux and Jacques Lecoq. Lecoq's Maschera Neutra, neutral mask, crafted by Amleto Sartori, also reviver of Commedia dell'arte's masks, was directly inspired by Nō masks. The German director Bertolt Brecht approached Nō from a different perspective. In 1929, he created He Who Said Yes, based on Arthur Whalley's translation of the Nō play Taniko. Brecht removed the original play's religious theme of salvation and reinterpreted it ethically as a story about self-sacrifice for the good of the community. The Nō-like device, in which actors function both as characters and as narrators, resonated with his idea of the alienation effect. As these figures show, Nō inspired Western artists in diverse ways. For Copeau, it represented training and discipline. For Brecht, a model of ethical dramaturgy. And for Claudel, it was a source of poetic inspiration. Nō was not simply an object of imitation, but rather a mirror for creative experimentation, a spirit that continues to resonate today. This brings me to the end of this short presentation. Thank you very much for listening.
Chapter 8 covers how Nō has been received outside the Nō world. Diego Pellecchia and I, Tarō Yokoyama, co-edited this entire chapter. For today's symposium, we've divided the content into pre-war and post-war periods for convenience. I basically handled the post-war part. By the way, in Japan, 1945 marks a major historical turning point. We call the period before it pre-war, and the period after it post-war. I did touch on the pre-war period a little bit exceptionally. Section 1 is the introduction, which I wrote. It covers the whole period from pre-war to post-war. If you read this section, you should be able to grasp the big picture of no reception history. I also introduced Section 7, written by Ryuichi Kodama. It deals with Nō's influence on kabuki during the Edo period. Section 4, Nogaku and Film, was also written by Ryuichi Kodama. He classifies No-related films into 3 categories. These are films with no-related stories, films that include scenes of No performances, and films where No or Kyōgen performers appear as actors. Thanks to this classification, we can now get a very clear overview of No reception in cinema. Section 5, No and Contemporary Theatre Abroad and in Japan, is co-authored by Peleghier and me. I think this plays a central role in Chapter 8, so let me introduce it carefully. In the early 20th century, William Butler Yeats wrote the play At the Hawk's Well under Nō's influence. This was re-imported to post-war Japan. It has been actively performed up to the present day. Inspired by this, Yukio Mishima wrote his modern No plays series in the 1950s. He is one of the representatives of modern Japanese literature. Since then, Japanese contemporary theater writers have always been conscious of how to surpass Mishima's modern No plays when they create works incorporating Nō. From the 1950s to the 60s, producer-director Tetsuji Takechi employed Nō and Kyōgen actors in many experimental works. His masterpiece was Schoenberg's Pierrot Lunaire. The artist group Rijiken Kobo Experimental Workshop participated in this. Its members included composers like Toru Takemitsu, Kazuo Fukushima, and Joji Yuasa. They later created contemporary music works incorporating Nō. During this period, overseas Nō performances started. Before the war, interest in Nō outside Japan was mainly based on literary knowledge, but theater practitioners around the world began to show interest in actual performances. A representative Nō performer who participated in these was Hisao Kanze. He was a bridge between experimental arts, overseas theater practitioners, and the Nō world. From the 1970s onward, he also collaborated with new generation theater practitioners like Tadashi Suzuki. During this period, Nō's artistic elements greatly influenced the performing arts of that time. They were seen as having the potential to transcend modern art. These elements include corporeality, narrativity, unique temporality called ma, and transcendence from everyday life. Hisao Kanze passed away in 1978. But even after the 1980s, interest in Nō continued to expand among theater practitioners worldwide. Attempts at no practice in foreign languages or by non-Japanese also emerged. However, in Japan, the contemporary theater scene changed during the 80s and 90s. The previous generation's attempts to reference no came to look outdated. Entering the 21st century, especially since the 2010s, reception of no by contemporary performing arts has become active again. We can say that no's usability is being newly discovered from different perspectives than before. Section 6 has a double meaning title, Why Not No? It is co-authored by Reginald Jackson and me. The famous critic Kojin Karatani once said no is no, no wa no da. He was criticizing the stereotypical understanding of Japanese culture, in which no is a representative symbol of beautiful Japan. In this section, we clarified why no is considered no good. We explained the academic historical background of Karatani's criticism. Then, we presented possibilities for no research that isn't no good. We tried to invite the younger generation by saying, let's study no. Finally, I made some comments looking back at the whole chapter. I didn't realize this when we were writing the book, but I now recognize a phenomenon in no reception. We should call it a spiral. Reception abroad, reception domestically, reception by artists, and reception by scholars all stimulate each other. This has expanded no's presence in contemporary society. If we push this view further, maybe we should shift from the concept of no reception to no crossing borders. No reception is something that happens outside no. For example, the appearance of Mishima's modern no plays was an event in modern theater, not an event in no theater. But shouldn't we understand it as part of no theater's own story? In fact, translations of this work stimulated interest in no abroad. This interest then influenced no performers in Japan. This created a spiral. When no crosses genres and national borders, this is part of no's own historical development. I hope Chapter 8 becomes a starting point for future research from these new perspectives. Thank you so much for listening.